What's up guys, this is Teddy. Welcome to my YouTube channel. In this video, I'm going to be talking about closing costs in real estate explained simply. So if you're watching this video, you're more than likely about to purchase a piece of real estate. Maybe you're an investor that's trying to brush up on what's involved in closing costs to minimize your expenses and increase your bottom line. Or maybe you are a first-time home buyer who is about to purchase your first home and you just figured out what the concept of closing costs are, and maybe you are shocked, a little bit stunned. But nonetheless, I'm going to try and break it down and make the overarching concept a little less difficult to understand. Closing costs in real estate are exactly the way that they sound. When you purchase a piece of real estate, you're going to have to pay above the actual purchase amount. So in an example, maybe if you paid $100,000 for a piece of real estate, in order for that piece of real estate to exactly change hands or become yours, you will have to pay some cost associated with this. Many first-time home buyers often get the concept of closing costs intermingled with the concept of maybe purchasing a stick of gum down at the local gas station. They often associate it with sales tax or just taxes in general, but this is not the case. Closing costs come mainly in two parts, and that is going to be buyer closing cost and seller closing costs. Yes, the seller actually incurs costs too, along with the buyer. Who incurs more and who actually incurs what is going to depend mainly on your location. In my state of North Carolina, the main selling cost that is associated with a home is going to be the real estate brokerage commission, and the buying cost associated with a piece of real estate is mainly going to come in the cost associated with obtaining a mortgage, the lawyer, and just miscellaneous fees that come about when you're inspecting the property and figuring out if you are actually going to purchase it or not. But there are also very exotic closing costs that can be very specific to a real estate transaction. An example of this would be a recent transaction that I had. The master bathroom subflooring was totally rotted out of the bottom of the house. Seller had to fix this for safety reasons and the fact that the buyer refused to pay, and that was $6,000 in closing costs tacked onto it, which the seller had to incur. The best piece of advice that I can give anybody if you want to figure out more exactly what closing costs are associated with real estate in your city would to be asking a real estate agent or asking a lender. As an overall thumb, a good way to look at it is closing costs will usually account for 1 to 5% of a real estate transaction added to the purchase price. Many people don't understand the why. Why are there closing costs associated with a piece of real estate? Why are they so expensive? And more importantly, with things like Zillow, why do real estate agents, real estate attorneys, and other people like this still exist? This is that real estate is very nuanced. On the surface, a real estate transaction can seem very simple, but underneath it, there's teams of people who are working 9 to 5 each day, even on weekends, to make sure a real estate transaction closes and that there's less risk involved. And people don't like to work for free, so you actually have to pay these people. Another thing is that real estate is in line with many industries. Like I said, you have financing, you have attorneys, you have real estate agents, you have contractors, you have specialists when it comes to the actual mechanics of a house. It's very difficult for one person in this transaction or a computer to know how to do all of these things, so each one of these people must be separately paid. I'm just going to go over the most common closing costs associated with a real estate transaction, which side they are typically assigned to, but not always, and just a general overview of what these parts of the closing costs actually do and how much you can expect them to be. One is going to be the real estate agent, and the real estate agent is always going to be sell side. Whenever you sell a piece of real estate, the biggest chunk out of the costs that are going to come from a seller are going to be in brokerage commissions. This brings me to the second closing cost associated, which is going to be the loan. Now, the loan traditionally is going to be a buyer paid expense because you are in fact the person who has to obtain the loan to purchase the property. This expense can vary on a lender by lender basis. The biggest cost is going to be the actual fee associated with getting the loan and making sure that the house itself is in working order to actually obtain the loan. When you purchase a house with cash, you don't have to do an appraisal, you don't have to do any surveying, although that's not definitely the best idea, but typically when you pay with cash, the closing costs are going to be a lot lower. Expect the loan origination fee to be one of the biggest costs associated with it, and that's going to be around 1 to 3% for the loan. The third biggest expense is going to be attorney, title fees, and fees associated with the actual changing hands of the property. In my state of North Carolina, it is a law that you must have an attorney do the actual deed. In other states, you can have title companies. I believe also they're called escrow companies. Title person or an attorney is going to be very important because you want to make sure that the title to the property is unclouded when it actually changes hands. Purchase a property without a general warranty deed, as it's called, or if you purchase a property through a quitclaim deed, it can actually come with liens, and it may be up to you to actually pay off those liens regardless if they're your liens or not. So make sure that you get a good title attorney, and make sure that you get title insurance for the property also, because title insurance is going to help you fight off any people who have claim to the property. So lastly, there's going to be other costs involved with actually inspecting the property. When you're about to purchase a property, you have to get a home inspector to make sure that there's nothing exactly wrong with the foundation or the mechanical parts of the house. Lastly, there's surveyors and appraisers. Most loans these days require you to get a survey and appraisal in order to actually qualify for the loan and actually allow the bank to give the loan. So that's going to be closing cost. There's prorations involved with closing cost also. If you had an HOA, the attorney or the title company will prorate that HOA, property tax, or the insurance down to the exact day to make sure that it's fair and nobody's paying extra for any of those services. People wonder, when exactly are you going to figure out the exact number that you have to pay in closing cost? You will get this number in what's called a CD, or a closing disclosure, maybe a HUD, an HUD, depending on the location that you're at. That would be something that you want to check with your real estate agent before the actual closing. This is probably one of the biggest questions of all. How do I get closing costs paid for? The lender can actually pay for the closing costs for you. Obviously, you're going to pay that in your monthly payment, and it's going to be amortized over the life of the loan. But you could also check to see if a seller will pay for your closing costs. A lot of times a seller can give you a credit in order to pay for the closing costs for you, and very drastically, because closing costs are negotiated in the sale. And if a market is a very big seller's market and there's not a lot of negotiating power, a seller's more than likely not going to pay any closing costs for you. But if you're buying in an area where there's less demand and you may be able to negotiate closing costs, you can actually just ask for them, and you'd be surprised at what you can get. Times it is absolutely pivotal that you get the closing costs paid. What you can actually do is you can purchase the property for a higher price and try to make your offer very strong and make up the difference in the purchase price and have the closing costs tacked into that. But anyway, that's my video on closing costs. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to hit that thumbs up button, make sure to hit that subscribe button, and as always, thank you for watching.